A guy named Kenji just finished a 14-hour shift in Tokyo. It's 11 p.m. He missed the last train, again. He walks into a building on a side street, feeds $30 into a machine, takes his shoes off, and slides into a pod the size of a coffin. The pod is spotless. There's no front desk trying to upsell him, no resort fee, no $15 minibar water. He gets 6 hours of sleep and he's back at his desk by 8. $30 in the most expensive city in Asia. Now here's the part that took me a while to figure out. That price is real. It's not a loss leader. It's not a trick. The hotel is making money at $30 a night, and it has been for 40 years, which means somebody, somewhere, is eating the cost of that room. It isn't the hotel, and it definitely isn't you. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly who it is. In America, cheap means dirty. $30 a night gets you a motel with a stained comforter and a lock that doesn't feel like a lock. In Japan, $30 gets you a capsule cleaner than most five-star rooms. $50 gets you a business hotel with free breakfast and a bathroom that looks like it was installed yesterday.
How is this cheaper than a Motel 6 and 10 times cleaner?
That question has an actual answer, and it's not Japanese people are just tidier. It's a specific set of design decisions, and I'll get to it. But first you need to understand where the whole thing came from, because the capsule hotel, the thing every tourist photographs and posts, was invented to solve a problem that had nothing to do with tourists. It was invented because of drunk guys sleeping on a sauna floor. A sauna operator in Osaka named Yukio Nakano had the same issue every single night. Guys from the offices and job sites nearby would come in after work, drink, and miss the last train. And instead of paying for a taxi they couldn't afford, they'd just sleep on his floor. Not one or two guys, dozens of them, snoring, using towels as blankets, still there at 6 in the morning.
I need somewhere to put these people.
He didn't want to build a hotel. A hotel meant rooms, and rooms meant land, and land in Osaka was not cheap. Then he saw a pod. In 1970, Japan hosted the World Expo in Osaka. Millions of people came through. One of the architects showing work there was a guy named Kisho Kurokawa, who was obsessed with a specific idea, that buildings should work like living organisms, stackable modules, replaceable parts. You don't renovate a building, you swap out a piece of it. 2 years later, he built the thing he's actually famous for, the Nakagin Capsule Tower in Tokyo, a concrete spine with 140 tiny prefab living pods bolted onto it, each one about the size of a shipping container's little brother. A bed, a desk, a bathroom the size of an airplane lavatory. It was supposed to be a statement about the future of architecture. Most people looked at it and thought, that's weird. Nakano looked at it and thought, that's my sauna floor. He tracked Kurokawa down and pitched him. The pitch was basically, I have dozens of guys sleeping on my floor every night. They don't need a hotel room, they need a bed. Can you build me a whole building full of those things? Kurokawa had never designed a pod to be mass-produced. He'd designed one to make a point. He said yes anyway, and the hard part wasn't the pod, it was everything around the pod. How do you run ventilation through hundreds of sealed fiberglass boxes so nobody suffocates? How do you stack them without it feeling like a morgue? How do you make a box with a curtain feel private when there are 200 strangers in the same room? In 1979, Capsule Inn Osaka opened. Hundreds of pods, stacked too high in long rows, each one about 2 meters long, 1 meter wide, just over a meter tall. Enough room to sit up, lie down, and roll over. Inside, a bed, a tiny TV, a radio, an alarm clock. No bathroom, no closet, no window. You climb in, pull the curtain shut, and somehow, surrounded by hundreds of people, it's quiet.
That's a coffin.
You don't need a whole room to sleep, you need a bed. Everything else is square meters you're paying rent on while you're unconscious.
Where do you shower? Where does your stuff go?
Shared floor, showers, lockers, a lounge. The things you use for 10 minutes, you share. The thing you use for 8 hours is yours.
A couple thousand yen a night, full every night, not tourists, workers from all over Osaka. Then Tokyo wanted one, then Kyoto, then Nagoya. Today there are over 1,000 capsule hotels across Japan. Nakano was trying to clear his floor. He accidentally invented an industry. Okay, so how does a capsule hotel charge 20 or 30 bucks and still make money? The obvious answer is density. More people in the same building. And that's true. A capsule floor holds 3 or 4 times the bodies a normal hotel floor does. But density alone doesn't get you there, because those guests are also paying about a quarter of a normal room rate. 4 times the people at a quarter of the price is the same money. That math is a wash. The reason it works is on the cost side, and it's brutal. 1. There's no plumbing in a pod. A normal hotel with 50 rooms needs 50 bathrooms, 50 toilets, 50 showers, 50 drain lines, and the entire building has to be engineered around getting water to all of them. A capsule hotel has 1 shower room. That's not a small savings. Plumbing is one of the single most expensive systems in a hotel to build and the most expensive to fix. 2. There's almost nothing inside to break. No desk, no chairs, no lamp, no dresser, no artwork, no carpet, a molded shell and a mattress. 3, and this is the big one, turning over a hotel room takes a housekeeper 25 to 40 minutes. Strip the bed, do the bathroom, vacuum, dust, restock. Turning over a pod takes about 90 seconds. Pull the sheet, wipe the shell, done. Labor is the largest ongoing cost in any hotel on Earth, and the capsule model cuts it by a factor of 20. So the correct way to look at this isn't guests per floor, it's revenue per square meter against cost per guest. The capsule wins on both sides at once. It packs more paying bodies into the same footprint, and it costs almost nothing to serve each one. Now, the thing everyone brings up here is vending machines. Beer, coffee, snacks, toiletries, sold at 2 a.m. to a guy in a bathrobe who is not going to walk 6 blocks in the rain. Those machines run real margins, and being the only option in the building at 2 in the morning is a nice position to be in. But I want to correct something you've probably heard. You've been told Japan has 5 million vending machines, one for every 23 people. That number is about 25 years old. Japan peaked around 5.5 million machines at the turn of the century. It's under 4 million now, down roughly a million in 6 years, and the decline is accelerating. Rising drink prices, convenience stores everywhere, and a driver shortage that makes restocking them expensive, which, weirdly, is a preview of everything else in this video. The famous, hyper-efficient machine everywhere, Japan is running out of the one input it can't automate: people. Right, cheap I've explained, but cheap and clean are supposed to be a trade-off, and in Japan they aren't. So what's going on? 4 things, and none of them are cultural mysticism. Shoes come off at the door, not as a courtesy, structurally. You take your shoes off at the entrance of the building, put them in a locker, and walk on the floor in slippers or socks, which means the dirt from the street never enters the building. Every stain an American hotel carpet accumulates over 10 years comes in on the bottom of a shoe. Japan's floors just never get that input. The rooms are prefabricated. Business hotel bathrooms in Japan aren't built on site. They're molded as a single unit in a factory: walls, floor, ceiling, tub, sink, and craned into the building shell during construction. One piece of plastic, which means almost no seams and almost no grout. And grout is where hotel bathrooms go to die. No seams means nothing to scrub, nothing to stain, nothing to go black in the corners. Capsule pods are the same idea taken further. A single molded shell you wipe down in one pass. Nothing gets stolen or wrecked. Japan's vandalism and petty theft rates are low enough that you can leave a vending machine full of cash on an unlit street corner. Apply that to a hotel, and the fixtures you installed in 1998 are still the fixtures. The lamp isn't missing. The remote isn't cracked. Rooms come back roughly the way they left, and cleaning is a job, not a churn position. Housekeeping in Japan is frequently staffed by long-tenured workers, often part-time retirees, who have done the same room layout 10,000 times. American hotels run housekeeping turnover so high that a meaningful share of the staff on any given day is new. A person cleaning their 8,000th identical room is simply better at it than a person cleaning their 8th. Small standardized room, no dirt input, nothing to break, and someone who's been doing it for 15 years. That's the whole trick. Capsules are one format. The bigger question is why an entire developed country's prices feel like a time machine. Two separate things are happening here, and almost everyone smashes them together. Let me pull them apart. Thing 1. The prices didn't move. In the late 80s, Japan had the biggest asset bubble in modern history. The line at the time was that the land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was worth more than the entire state of California. Banks were lending to anyone with a pulse. In 1991, it broke. The stock market lost half its value. Real estate collapsed. Banks started failing. And then the government did everything. Rates to zero, trillions in stimulus, bank bailouts. None of it worked for 30 years. They call it the lost decades, and what it actually meant for a normal person is that prices stopped moving. A business hotel room that cost 8,000 yen in 1995 still cost 8,000 yen in 2019. A bowl of ramen that was 600 yen in 1998 was 600 yen 20 years later.
So things just got cheaper for 30 years?
No, that's the part people get wrong. Prices froze, and so did wages. Japanese workers spent 3 decades earning roughly what they earned in the 90s. So for the guy living there, nothing got cheaper. Everything just stopped. That first part explains why the price is low in yen. It doesn't explain why it's low in dollars. That's a separate event. In 2024, the yen fell to 161 to the dollar, weakest it had been since 1986. If you were American, your dollar suddenly went about 40% further in Japan than it had 5 years earlier. Put those together, and you get the situation every travel vlogger has been screaming about. A price that hasn't moved in 30 years, converted at an exchange rate that collapsed. That $30 capsule isn't a deal to a Japanese worker. It's just the price. It's always been the price. You showed up holding a currency that got a lot heavier.
So I'm not getting a deal?
You're getting a deal. It's just not a gift. You're getting a front row seat to what 30 years of economic stagnation looks like from the inside. And I should say, this is the part of the story that's actively changing. Japan finally got real inflation starting around 2022, and hotel rates in Tokyo and Kyoto have climbed hard on the tourism boom. The freeze is cracking. If you've been putting off the trip, that's the honest reason to stop putting it off. Here's a piece of this that almost never comes up, and it explains an enormous amount. In Japan, buildings depreciate to nothing. In America, a house from 1940 can be worth more than a house from 2010 because it's in the right neighborhood. The building holds value. In Japan, a house is treated more like a car. It loses value from the day it's finished, and it's effectively worth zero in 20 to 30 years. The land keeps its value, the structure does not. A huge share of homes get torn down and rebuilt rather than resold. Now apply that to hotels. It means old buildings are cheap to acquire because the seller isn't pricing in a building, they're pricing in dirt. It means converting a dead office block into a capsule hotel is financially trivial. It means an operator can gut and rebuild a property every 20 years instead of patching a 60-year-old one, which is why the $50 room you're standing in has a bathroom that looks brand new. Japan's hotels are cheap and modern for the same reason. The buildings are disposable. Tourists photograph capsules, but the format that actually holds the country up is the one they walk past. The business hotel, Toyoko Inn, roughly 350 locations in all 47 prefectures, and the entire strategy is that they are all identical. Same room, same bed, same prefab bathroom unit, literally the same mold, same free breakfast every morning, onigiri, miso soup, curry, salad, and they staff that breakfast with part-time retirees.
A 70-year-old shows up on time, doesn't call out, and makes better miso soup than any 25-year-old I've hired. And 4 hours a day is exactly what they want.
A single room runs about $50. That breakfast would be a $15 add-on at an American hotel. Here it costs the operator maybe $2 a head, and it's free, because in a market this commoditized, the room next door is also $50 and also clean, and breakfast is the only thing you'll actually remember. Now, the founder, Norimasa Nishida, built this from one hotel in 1986, and in 2006, inspectors found that 60 of his hotels had been quietly modified after passing building inspection. Wheelchair ramps ripped out, disabled parking paved over and turned into lobby space, all to claw back a few more square meters of revenue per building. He went on national television and admitted it.
I knew it violated the ordinance. I approved it anyway.
Then he cried and resigned. His daughter took over. The chain kept growing, which tells you how hard the margins are squeezed in this business. When your entire model is $50 rooms, every square meter is the difference between a profitable property and a dead one, and at least one guy decided the ramp was worth more as lobby. If you want to see this obsession pushed past its limit, there's the Henna Hotel, opened 2015 with 243 robots, dinosaur robots checking guests in, a robot arm storing your luggage, Guinness World Record for the first robot-staffed hotel in the world. The pitch was simple. Robots don't take salaries, vacations, or sick days. 144 rooms run by 7 humans. 4 years later, they fired half the robots.
How may I help you?
I need extra towels.
How may I help you?
The in-room assistants were waking guests at 3 a.m. because they heard snoring and thought it was a command. The dinosaur at the front desk couldn't photocopy a passport. The luggage robot could physically reach 24 of the 144 rooms. The robots didn't replace the staff. They generated support tickets for the staff. Remember this one, because in about 4 minutes it's going to matter that Japan tried to automate its way out of a labor problem, and it didn't take. Every Japanese city has buildings you've walked past without understanding. Names like Hotel Rest or Hotel Chapel. Blacked out windows, no visible front desk. You pick a room off a lit-up photo board in the lobby and a curtain closes behind you. Love hotels. There are somewhere around 10,000 of them. They go back 400 years to the Edo period, when they were called lovers' tea houses, buildings with hidden entrances and multiple exits so nobody saw you arrive or leave. The most famous is the Meguro Emperor in Tokyo, built in 1973. It looks like Cinderella's castle, 30 rooms.
Why does that hotel look like a theme park?
They were banned from advertising, so the building became the ad. Make it a castle, people remember where it is.
But the architecture isn't the interesting part. The math is. A normal hotel sells a room once a day. Check in at 3, out at 11. One customer, one payment. Even at 100% full, that's your ceiling. One sale per room per day. A love hotel doesn't sell nights, it sells blocks. A short stay, 1 to 2 hours, is about 3,000 yen. A rest, 3 to 5 hours, about 6,000. Overnight, 8,000, which means a well-run room turns over roughly 2.5 times a day. That's the number that breaks everything. Occupancy caps at 100%. You cannot fill a room more than full. But turns per day has no ceiling. A love hotel isn't running higher occupancy than a Marriott. It's running a completely different denominator. The Meguro Emperor, 30 rooms, has been reported to pull in around 40 million yen a month. Call it $250,000 from a building smaller than most apartment complexes. Run the comparison. A normal 30-room hotel, 80% occupancy, $65 a night, does about $48,000 a month. Same room count, same city, 5 times the revenue.
How big is this industry?
Honestly, nobody knows, and that's the point. The last serious estimate put it around $40 billion, But that estimate is from 2009, and no one's seriously updated it since, because the entire business is structured so nothing gets recorded. No names at check-in, no face-to-face contact, automated everything.
The privacy isn't a feature, it's the product.
So far, this has been a video about clever business models, density, prefab bathrooms, turns per day. I need to change gears because there's a reason all of this exists, and it isn't cleverness. Remember Kenji, 14-hour shift, missed the last train, $30 pod? He's not a tourist, he's not doing it for the experience. He does this 3 times a week because his office is an hour from his apartment and the last train in Tokyo leaves around 11 p.m. If your boss keeps you until midnight, and millions of bosses do, you have 2 options: a taxi that runs $100, or somewhere cheap to be unconscious until the 5 a.m. train. That's who fills the capsule hotels on a Tuesday. Not people taking photos, exhausted men in wrinkled suits buying 6 hours of sleep so they can do it again.
I take the last train when I can. When I can't, I go to a manga cafe. 1,500 yen. $10.
How often?
3 times this week.
And then there are people who aren't missing a last train because there's nowhere for the train to take them. In Japanese, they're called netto cafe nanmin, net cafe refugees, people living permanently in internet cafe cubicles. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government surveyed this in 2017 and estimated around 4,000 people were sleeping in Tokyo's 24-hour manga cafes on any given night with no other address. That's the last real government count anyone has. A cubicle is about 3 feet wide, a reclining chair, a desk, a screen, maybe a mat, unlimited soft drinks from the fountain, free Wi-Fi, a blanket, 1,500 yen, $10. That's home.
To rent an apartment in Tokyo, you need key money, a deposit, first month, and a guarantor. That's 3 or 4 months of pay before you have a key. I make 100,000 yen a month. I can't save that. So I stay at the cafe.
That's the trap, and it's a purely mechanical one. These aren't people who can't hold a job. Most of them work. Temp contracts, convenience store shifts, day labor. They're not short on income. They're short on a lump sum. The Japanese rental system asks for several months up front, and if you can't clear that hurdle once, you pay $10 a night forever instead. Japan's official homeless count was 2,591 people in January 2025. It's dropped almost 90% since 2003, and the government cites it constantly. But that survey only counts people sleeping outdoors, parks, riverbanks, station buildings. If you're in a car, a cubicle, or a 24-hour booth, you're not in the number. Researchers and housing groups put the real figure somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000. Nobody knows because nobody's officially counting. And the work culture filling these places every night isn't just tiring, it's fatal, and Japanese has a word for it that English doesn't: Karoshi, death by overwork. Heart attacks, strokes, and suicides directly attributed to working hours. The official number is around 200 a year, but that's the number of families who filed a claim, proved it, and got compensated. A 52-year-old having a heart attack doesn't come with a label on it. Nobody credible thinks 200 is the real figure. Roughly 1 in 5 Japanese companies has employees logging 80 hours of overtime a month. 80. That's 4 extra hours every day, weekends included. In 2021, Japan appointed a Minister of Loneliness, only the 2nd country ever to do it. The UK went first in 2018. And the reason wasn't sentimental. Overwork wasn't just wrecking bodies, it was severing people from everyone around them. When you work 14 hours a day, you don't see friends, you don't date, you don't call your family. You come home, you sleep, you go back. For years, and eventually you don't know anyone outside the office. There's a word for what comes after that too. Kodokushi, lonely death. People who die alone in their apartments and nobody comes looking. Not for days, sometimes not for months. The mail stacks up, the neighbors don't ask, and eventually a landlord opens the door. There are companies in Japan whose entire business is cleaning those apartments. It's a real, established industry with real, established procedures, and demand is growing. An OECD survey found around 15 to 17% of Japanese men report rarely or never spending time with friends or family, roughly 3 times the developed world average. I told you at the start that somebody is absorbing the cost of that $30 room. It isn't the hotel. The model works, the margins are real. The prefab bathroom and the 90-second turnover see to that. And it isn't you. Japan is one of the last places on Earth where the number on the website is the number you pay. No resort fee, no destination fee, no mandatory gratuity, no casino floor between you and the elevator. The room is the product, not the bait. The person paying is Kenji. He's paying in the wages that haven't moved since he started working. He's paying in the 4 hours of overtime that push him past the last train. He's paying in the fact that a country this rich built an entire hospitality category around the assumption that millions of its workers will not make it home tonight. The capsule hotel isn't a quirky Japanese invention. It's infrastructure for a workforce that doesn't get to go home. The manga cafe isn't a nerd hangout. For 4,000 people, it's an apartment they can afford in $10 increments. Your room is cheap because a currency collapsed, because prices sat still for 30 years, and because a working population got tired enough that somewhere to be unconscious for 6 hours became a product category. The room isn't cheap because Japan is generous. It's cheap because Japan is exhausted. Enjoy your stay. Now, if you want the exact inverse, a city where the room costs $500 a night, the bathroom is smaller than a capsule, and the hotel still finds 4 separate ways to charge you again before checkout. That's New York. That one's next.